Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining my talk today. The topic is elevating your game as a programmer, specifically on how to become a craftsperson. So let's get started. Uh, Here's the agenda. We're going to go through a quick intro. This is my third presentation, so I'll spare everyone the longer intro. I'm going to share my source of inspiration for this talk. Then we're going to follow that with my observations on some really impressive performance by a crew that's not software engineering, and we're going to talk about what they do and how that relates to some of the things that we can do in the world of programming. Then I'm going to share my own personal behavior quadrant where I have 4 squares and we can divide different programmers up into different squares. And then I'm going to share some things that I think will help elevate everyone's game, both from resources and some books to read now, as well as my go forward challenge to everyone on this call. Okay, who is this guy? I have been a professional programmer since 1989. I realize that many, if not most of you, were not even born in 1989. That's okay. But I consider, I use the word professional because that's when I started getting paid for writing code. And so, yeah, I've been doing that for a while now. I started in the petroleum industry in Houston, Texas. Then I moved to enterprise software where I worked for over a decade. I've done startups. I've done over a decade in gaming at EA, and everybody likes to hear more about that one. I've been a consultant, and now I'm the Chief Innovation Officer here at Gap, and I've been here about 10 months now, so almost a year. That's a little bit about me. My objectives for today are first to share observations about what makes someone really good at what they do. And then hopefully I'll inspire all of us to improve in areas that we need to improve on so we can be really good at what we do. And then finally, to share ideas and resources that I think will elevate all of our games and make us all more productive and better programmers. My inspiration for this talk was I recently had a home edition. I have a very old home that was built in 1870. And for anyone that's been in a really old home like that, the kitchen, well, let's just put it this way. My wife and I could not fit in the kitchen at the same time. So the way that they lived in 1870 is very different than the way we like to live today, including the fact that we are very food-centric people and we have friends and family over and we tend to gather in the kitchen. So we needed to fix that about the house. And so during this home edition, there was a construction crew that worked here every day for 6 months. And my observations of that crew are what led to the inspiration of this talk. And I'm going to share 7 of those key observations. And as we go through those, kind of relate those to what they would mean to me as a programmer, software engineer in my career, and things that I learned from people that probably couldn't log on to the internet if they had to, but how much I actually learned from them that could make me better. And then trying to decide what that means to me in my career. It's always a personal and healthy thing to do. And finally, reflecting on my career as a programmer, which I'm going to do today. Webster's dictionary defines a craftsperson as a person who practices or is highly skilled in a craft, an artisan, someone that is really, really good at something, which we all, hopefully all of us, want to be really good at something that we do, especially something that we do in our professional life, in our career, in our job. So that's the way Webster defines a craftsperson. I agree with that. And that's going to be kind of the foundation for the rest of this talk. Okay, Here are my 7 observations of the construction crew that had to design and build a kitchen. And we'll see how it goes with relating this to software engineering. We'll have a little fun with this. First of all, number 1, it's not a job, it's a lifestyle. Watching this team work every day was very clear to me that they didn't come and punch a clock at 8 o'clock in the morning and bail at 5 o'clock. They were here early, they left late, they were focused on the task. You could tell to them that this was a lifestyle. It was not a job. And I think that in my career, the best programmers that I've been around live that with that same mantra or had that same attitude about their job being more of a lifestyle. Here's a picture of the backsplash, the actual backsplash of the tile in a part of our kitchen. And this was done by Pedro, also known as the tile guy. And it took him about a week. And before he took on this task, he said, this is really going to challenge me. This is really going to challenge me. So he was up for this challenge because he hadn't done anything quite like this before. But then after a week and he was done, he tells us, me and my wife, when people see this, please, please, please tell them I'm the one who did this. Tell them I'm the one who did this. Now, that got me to thinking, you know, how many things have we produced as programmers that give us that level of accomplishment and pride? What can we look back on and say, yeah, I was a part of a team that did that, and that is amazing, and I want people to know. Because if you just think about having that kind of attitude and that pride in your accomplishment, probably has a lot to do with the level of quality in his work, because he went the extra mile and it showed. But not only that, he wanted people to know that he was the one that did it because he was so proud of it. I don't know everybody here, but I can tell you in my career, I've had a few of those, probably maybe 4 or 5 that I could really look back on and say, I am so proud of that. I want people to know that I did that. And I can tell you that I seek more opportunities to do the same, because those are the ones that are worth doing. The ones you look back on like that have such an impact that make you feel so proud of what you and your team accomplished. So that's the first one. Number 2, attitude is everything. Now, some of you might be thinking, when are we going to get to the programming part of this? That's a good question, and we'll talk about technical skills here in a few minutes. But we're also talking about what makes someone really good at what they do and being a craftsperson. And the second thing I noticed about this crew was their attitude was amazing. Well, guess what? Things didn't go perfectly. Has anyone been on a project that ever did? No, I haven't. And I've been doing it since 1989. My wife and I changed requirements. Mostly my wife. I did too. They rolled with the punches. No problem. What do you think about this? They actually volunteered some changes that we didn't think of that gave us that kind of expertise and advice after building many kitchens. They made mistakes. We'll talk about that in a few slides, but how they addressed those mistakes made them craftsmen. People got sick. A couple of people on the crew got COVID, and they were out for a while. Meanwhile, this crew has multiple jobs that they're working, so they're having to put in double time to cover up for their sick colleagues. But the bottom line is, they always maintained a positive attitude. Teamwork wins. And I know this is no surprise to anyone here, but I want to drill in on this a little bit more, especially in the context of attitude with regards to teamwork. Teamwork is required, in my opinion, in my observations, to get things done faster. There is no doubt in my mind that when we have a team doing something, we can do things faster. Not only that, we can get them done better. We have different skill sets on our team. Each member brings different things to the table compared to others. So we will get things done better based on the skills of our team. Teamwork is required to learn. to learn from your teammates, to teach your teammates, and finally to grow. So when I watch this crew and their interactions and their collaborations every day, that inspired me to be a better team member on my own team here at Gap and with my customer interactions and my collaborations with Gap customers. And let's face it, the last item here is the road's no fun going alone. And so the more that we collaborate and integrate with our teams, both within Gap and within our customers, the more satisfied we're going to be in our job. So attitude and teamwork, together they form a category called chemical makeup. I call it the good person and the team player genes that are just in your makeup that make up who you are. This is used commonly in Major League Baseball and other pro sports prospecting, where they actually evaluate potential players and prospects on their chemical makeup. Most of the time, this is even weighted heavier than other more technical skill categories like how fast they run, how hard they throw, things like that. But they put such emphasis on this because they're going to be a player on a team, and that they know that if they have a poor chemical makeup, not only will it negatively impact their performance, it will impact negatively their team's performance. And so I took a screenshot here. Everyone can Google this later if you're not familiar with it. Netflix has a very public policy on no brilliant jerks. Netflix figured out that, we don't care how smart somebody is, that brilliant jerks, they bring down teams, they ruin projects, and they ruin teams. So we have a no brilliant jerks policy. So if you happen to work at Netflix and you're identified as a brilliant jerk, you're out of there. So they don't care how good you are at Java or how good you are at Amazon AWS. They don't care about any of that. If you're a brilliant jerk, you're gone. So that emphasis on attitude and teamwork from a company who has kind of figured it out on the negative impact of someone that has poor attitude and little teamwork. So programming, there's a lot of ego involved, and I'll be the first one to admit this. But there's also this very public and effective, what they refer to as the 10 Commandments of egoless programming. And let's go through them here real quickly. Number one, understand that you will make mistakes. And we all do, some more than others, but we will all make mistakes until the day we die, and we have to understand that. Second one is you are not your code. If I attack a code check-in, I am not personally attacking the person. And at the same time, the code is not a reflection of me and my character and the way that I feel about myself. If people are attacking my code, I shouldn't feel terrible about myself. You are not your code. The next one, no matter how much you know, somebody will know more than you. And I think that if you haven't experienced that in your career, you will, is that there's always a few people, or there might be someone on a team that acts like a know-it-all. And then it'll take, it won't be too long before they'll run into somebody that knows a lot more than them, and they don't know how to deal with it. So just know that be humble, that somebody's going to know more than you in anything, and just accept that. The next one is don't rewrite code without consultation. You don't refactor to refactor. A lot of times developers are refactoring code because they don't want to take the time to learn, what it did originally, or, hey, this will be easier if I start over. It might be easier, but you might introduce a lot more bugs on the thing that's working perfectly right now. So before you rewrite something, consult with the team and the leadership and make sure that's the right thing to do. Treat those who know less than you with respect. We were always there at one point in our career. I've been there. Everybody on this call has been there. So just remember that you were once in that position where you knew less than the people that were in the room that were making decisions, and just treat them with the same amount of respect as someone that you think knows more. The only constant in the world is change. So we have to continue to stay abreast of new technologies and new solutions to problems. We signed up for this career that is going to be a never changing, an endless learning thing. And that's one of the things that I love about it, as I'm sure everybody does here too, is that we have constant change. The next one I like a lot. True authority comes from knowledge, not position, especially in healthy organizations where the best ideas win, also known as a meritocracy, that those who know the most about something, that is the authority. Doesn't matter your title, doesn't matter your position, doesn't matter you've been doing it since 1989. None of that matters. Whoever knows the most is the authority on that topic. Fight for what you believe, but accept defeat. Stand up, have a backbone, and make a strong case for certain decisions or a certain direction. It might be a technology decision that you think should be made, but in the case that it is a different decision is made, just accept it and move on, because that makes you a healthy teammate. You're not going to win them all, you're not going to lose them all, but feel free to defend your arguments and do the best you can. The next one is, don't be the person coding in the dark. Be more collaborative in nature. Help those around you as they will help you, but don't be that person that is a solo programmer that you might be very, very good, but you're going to be a lot better when you collaborate and much more valuable to your team as a collaborative team member. And the last one, critique code, not people. For those of you that participate in code reviews, if I am the one that's being reviewed, I tend to cherish that because I'm going to learn something. People are going to be able to share some things with me during the code review that are going to make my code better, and I'm going to learn something. It's a very different approach than I'm going to take it as an attack if you don't like the way that I did that, or I used technology that you weren't a fan of. And on the other side of that, you're critiquing code and not the person. You're offering input to how things could be better, independent of who wrote it. And so don't attack them, but you have every right to critique the code and do it with respect, and just make sure you've done your background and your homework on it and make sure that it's a solid critique. So those 10 commandments of egoless programming, I have them on my wall in the background here that you can't see, but I think those are a good kind of roadmap for us to constantly keep in mind as we go through our programming careers. Observation number 3 of the construction crew. They have the intangibles. So we're going to start over here where the arrow starts. They show up. Like I said, most of the time they would be at the house before I got up, and I'm an early riser. We're talking 5:30, 6 a.m. They're starting in the kitchen. So that's number 1. They show up. 2, they tackle hard problems. They face those problems head on. They do not avoid them. 3, they don't create problems. We've all had team members in our careers that created more problems than they solved, right? It might be personal problems, as far as, hey, I can't get along with such and such, or it might be technical problems, or they introduced technology into the stack that added more problems than it solved. The next one is they don't give up. So there are many opportunities in our professional lives as developers where we could just give up on that and let somebody else take a crack at that. But if you're going to be a craftsperson and be known for really good at what you do, you don't give up. And these guys that worked on the kitchen didn't give up either, and they had many very difficult challenges. And then finally, they're relentless problem solvers. So I think that at the end of the day, if it were up to me, on all of our business cards, it would say, as for your title, it would say problem solver. For the really good ones, it would say relentless problem solver, that they are just in relentless pursuit of solving a problem. And so this is what the crew did, and my observations of them over a 6-month period, and the curveballs that they got thrown to them, and how they didn't give up, and how they addressed them head on. It was amazing to watch. and it made me think about how that would transfer or translate to the life of a software engineer or a programmer. That um, makes me wonder about these questions. Do you put in extra effort to support a teammate? Maybe the teammate's out sick, or maybe they have a family member sick, or who cares, whatever the reason is. They're out. Or they're behind and they need some extra help. Do you let them struggle, or do you put in some extra effort to help them? Do you find creative ways to solve problems? Or is it, hey, I haven't seen that problem before. I don't know what to do about it. Or even worse, not my problem. That should be like the DBA's problem. I'm a software developer. I don't need to know DBA stuff. That's not my problem. Do you put the needs of the customer and the project at the top of the list? Or do you put other things that shouldn't be at the top of the list at the top of the list? And the last one is, do you try to wow a customer instead of just good enough? There are the crafts people that every time they produce something, the customer is like, I cannot wait to see what Alan presents today, because every time he presents something, it's amazing. So try to become a wizard of wow and strive for above, way above just good enough. The customer would accept it, sure, but that's not good enough for you if you're going to be a craftsperson. You're going to become a wizard of wow, and you want them to leave that whether or not it was a code review, whether or not you're demonstrating proof of concept, you want them to leave with a big wow. Number 4, they use specialized tools. And this comes into like the skills area a little bit, but I couldn't help notice, and I'm a tools guy. I would not say I'm super handy on a scale of 1 to 10, with a 1 being I can change a light bulb, and a 10 being I can do my own electrical stuff like an electrician. I'd probably consider myself like a 5, but I am fascinated with the specialized tools that they have. And not only do they have this toolbox of tools, but they seem to know when is the right time to use a specific tool. How does a tool work? They know how to use it very well, but most importantly, they know when and why to use that tool. So how does that translate to us? Well, it makes me think, what's in your toolbox? And so, I have a few graphics here, Git and their Visual Studio Code, stuff like that. But it's something for us all to think about. Like, what do you lug around as a programmer if you are going to be tasked with something? You say, here's what I use to do those things. And it's good to always keep those tools current and keep them tuned up. So here's just a sample that I put in here. Here's my toolbox. Notice I say June of 21. If you were to look at my toolbox from June of 20, it would be different. So Visual Studio Code, I like that a lot. I'm a big fan of JSON lint for the verification of JSON payloads. I go there a couple times a day at least. Postgres admin tool, which is the free IDE for Postgres. Postman for submitting REST payloads. Git, Docker, VirtualBox, I've used a lot. It's in my toolbox. And then Windows Terminal. I have an asterisk beside this because I didn't know about Windows Terminal till about a month ago. And the newest member of our SWAT team, Brian, pointed it out to me and showed it to me. And now I'm like addicted to this thing. So I'm using it on a current project. But I had wished I had known about it earlier because this thing is really cool. So it deserves a spot in my toolbox. Let's say I'm building some, scalable cloud stuff. What is in my toolbox for that? Well, I have, message queues. Always a very good thing to have in the toolbox if you're going to build something highly scalable. I have eventually consistent databases. Also a good thing to have to build scalable stuff. I have caches. I know a lot about stateless architectures. I know about REST and a few more things on the list. The interesting thing here is note that let's take message queues for instance. I didn't say RabbitMQ. I said I know about message queues, and so to me, when I'm working on a project, to know when and why to use a message queue and the benefits of that are more important than saying, hey, we should use RabbitMQ. Because at the end of the day, they're all pretty similar. There's pros and cons to each, but I don't care if it's Amazon Simple Queue Service or RabbitMQ or IBM's ActiveMQ. It gets pretty tiresome just even evaluating all of them. But more importantly is, you know how those things work and when to use one. So that's the things that I tend to focus on in my toolbox is the knowledge on things and these components that are required to build, in this case, scalable apps. And then we can go down more and we can talk about specific technologies because guess what? Technology change a lot. They come and go. So it's good to know about caching, but there's nothing wrong, and you should become an expert in say Redis, for instance. But Redis isn't going to be around forever. But more importantly, how do you use the cache and when do you use it? And then I put a note down here at the bottom that my toolbox isn't the right toolbox for everyone and every role. It's right for me. So when I say what's in your toolbox, that's just something for you to think about. Like what do I lug around, either actually or just conceptually, digitally, when I'm tasked on a project? What do I have that I'm good at that I pull out of the box when I need to? So something for everyone to think about. Next, I say, what tools have you mastered? It might be a programming language. You might be really good in, Python or Node or Go or whatever. Maybe you've mastered a public cloud. Maybe you have multiple certifications in Azure or AWS. That's awesome. Maybe you've mastered a hot domain like security or DevOps. Both very, very hot right now. And put Kubernetes in the DevOps space over there if you want. Maybe you've mastered something foundational. Maybe you say, I'm really good at data structures and algorithms. That is the foundation for like everything that we do. Something really good to have mastered. But more importantly, the question is here is what would you like to master that you currently have not mastered? And to really have that as a target to be known as a craftsperson in a specific area. Observation number 5, they learn from each other. So I was really amazed in watching the collaboration of the crew. This crew had worked together for 25 years, but yet the way that they interacted and helped each other and learned from each other, you would think someone that has worked that long together, that there was not any room for that anymore. They've already known everything about each one of them. Not true. And I was just amazed at the interaction and how they were able to learn from each other. But to learn from each other, one has to want to teach and one has to want to learn. So two things have to happen for this to occur. And in this case, two of the workers, Ricardo and Luis, who I became very good friends with over 6 months, they're both 63 years old. They've worked together for 25 years. One day I would see Ricardo teaching Luis something, and the next day it would be the opposite. How amazing is that to have that input buffer to say, yeah, I at 63, I have plenty to learn, these guys are thinking. And they're learning from another 63-year-old. Which is amazing. So two things have to go right. One has to want to teach, one has to want to learn. And keep in mind, a teacher of one thing is the learner of another. And in my experience, the best teams have members that all teach and that they all learn. So if you can create that kind of culture or help participate in that kind of a culture, then work becomes very fun and becomes a source of joy because you're learning, you're getting better, and that feels really good. But what feels even better is when you help someone out else, and then you teach someone and you watch them get better, that that feels even better. Number 6, they're obsessed with quality. So this is a picture I took about 2 hours ago, and I said I'm going to work this into the presentation. Here is original patio brick from the year 1870, and this was a drop off of about 4 feet down to the ground here. This decking did not exist, so we said, hey, why don't we, as part of this little kitchen thing, create a small deck outside off the patio off that brick, and we decided to do that. The reason that I have this included in the presentation is if you look at this, look at the way that the notched boards go into the divots into the brick. So for me, as not being a craftsman, when it comes to this kind of work, I would have butted these boards up to the brick and I'd have been fine. We might have an 1/8 of an inch or less than that gap, but nobody's going to sprain an ankle walking through there, right? But if you look at what they did, the way they notched these boards around these bricks, that took extra effort and is above and beyond. So when you look at that, you're like, wow, definitely not a shortcut, definitely took longer to do because they are obsessed with quality. As a developer, when you want to know who the developers that are known for quality, ask the QA team. They'll know and they'll be glad that you asked them. I've done that the majority of my career. And I've never had any shortage of responses to that. And so you'll get responses like, we always have to scrutinize the work of Roger, or Mary always produces solid features. They know. So my question to everybody here is, where do you want your name mentioned? You want it in this blank or you want it in this blank? Because it's one of the two. Very rarely is there kind of a middle of the road here, right? And so feel free to engage the QA team. How am I doing? What do you think of the quality of my deliverables? How is my bug count compared to the number of lines of code that I write? Everything, do you think I need to improve on certain areas? What would they be? But the QA team will know who are the most solid developers that produce the least amount of bugs. The next question I have is, what is your opinion on defects? So here I have a grid or a scale, sorry. I have a junior developer on the left, and let's say we have a craftsperson on the right. So when asked their opinion on defects, the junior developer says they're part of software development. And to that, I say, I agree. That is true and spoken like a junior developer. Next, going up the line here, I'm surprised that I had a defect reported on my stuff, but oh well, it happens. Good that you're surprised, but oh well, it happens, which is true. We're not perfect, and it does happen, but that's not the response of a craftsperson. How would a craftsperson respond to that? They would say something like, I'm surprised, and I will learn from this. Look at just the difference in the level of acceptance of something that's not right. I can tell you that we were nearing completion on the kitchen, and we had a really bad rainstorm, and our roof leaked, and it leaked bad. And so I was like, what? I thought these guys were really good, and now we got water coming down in the kitchen. So I made a call to the team leader on a Sunday, because it happened on a Saturday night. And sure enough, Luis and Ricardo came out within 30 minutes, and they had their iPhones and they were taking pictures, and they were like, I am so sorry, this has not happened, but this is going to happen again. And then they were working all that day Sunday to fix it. And so just the way that they were surprised and said they will learn from this was more than enough for me. And I would be willing to bet that they don't have that problem again from a leaky roof from a kitchen similar to ours. And number 7, they have fun. The number of times that I would go out and the music would be blaring and they would be laughing these guys have known each other, a good part of their lives, and they are just having fun together. Well, you think about spending this much time with your team, it makes the day go by a lot quicker when you're able to have fun doing what you do and liking what you're doing. So when we think about fun, fun follows passion. If you're passionate about something, it's hard not to have fun. If you're not passionate about it, I don't know if you really can get any fun out of that. But fun is going to make you better. But number two here, fun is contagious. That if you're have a high degree of a high level of enthusiasm and you're having fun on the project, that doesn't mean you're a slacker. That just means that you consider what you're doing to be really fun and really engaging. uh, it's contagious, and the others will start to feel it too. The opposite is true too. If it's terrible and you give off the vibes that it's terrible, that's contagious as well. Fun makes us happier. So life is short. When a job is fun, life is good. When it's not, then it's not. And that there's one key aspect of your life that's not going well, like your job is not that great, your job is not that fun, and that trickles over into other parts of your life and creates other challenges. So there are ways that you can make a job fun. So on some days you might think, I don't know about this. I don't know how this could ever be fun. There are a lot of creative ways that you can make a job fun, and I would be glad to talk to anyone that wants to offline about that. So those are the end of my observations of the construction crew that are translated into how we can be better software engineers and become a craftsperson. But now I want to share with a few other things that are going to help elevate our game. One is, here is my own personal take on the behavioral quadrant, I call it. And so over here to the left, we have chemical makeup starting low and going high. Higher is better. And then on the bottom, we have skills. Low skills to the left, higher skills to the right. So if we look at each one of these quadrants, and I have them in these colors for a reason. Let's look at the bottom left. They're low chemical makeup and they're low in skills. So these are masters of shortcuts. They tend to require formal training to do things. I haven't had a class for that, so I'm not responsible for that, or I don't know what to do because I haven't had the MongoDB training yet. They're full of excuses, and to people that are programmers that are in this quadrant, this is just a job. So this is red. This is not someone that I would have on one of my teams, or would prefer not to have on my team unless they showed signs of getting out of the red quadrant. So this is a low chemical makeup and low skills. They're going to be at risk on any team. Next, we'll go up here to the upper left. These have a really strong chemical makeup, but they have low skills. So this might be an apprentice, someone new to a position that's learning. That's okay. If typically a junior developer with a good attitude, with a great level of enthusiasm, shows up, tackles hard problems. They show pride and enthusiasm in their work, which is shared with this quadrant over here, and they're typically loved by their teammates. Now, the reason this is yellow and not green is because you can hang over here for a while, but at a certain point, if you're not getting it done with skills, your skills are not increasing, you're not moving over this direction, then that would be an area of concern. So, that I've worked with people that were really nice, and then they had good attitudes, but they just didn't have the technical skills to get the job done. Others start out that way, and then they do what they take to improve on their technical skills. Next, we'll go to the bottom right. These are people that are very, very highly skilled, but they're very low on chemical makeup. So they take responsibility for their training, which is good, but they tend to hoard knowledge. They're not a big sharer because they consider knowledge is power. And if I share these things, it's not making me better, when actually the opposite is true. They prefer to work alone. And this is typically where you're going to have your brilliant jerks. not typically welcomed as a team member, or maybe they are, but they don't want to be, and they tend to be more isolationist in nature and less collaborative. This is yellow and not red because they also might be able to make the transition here, unless they're just really off the charts as far as difficult to work with, in which case it would be red. And then finally, we have the upper right, which is green. To them, it's not a job, but a lifestyle. Now we're talking about here's where the craftspeople are going to be. They share knowledge instead of hoard it. They also show pride and enthusiasm in their work. Um, they stay current of latest trends and training on their own. If they can get that through their employer, that's awesome. That's gravy. But I'm not dependent on my employer for me to learn something about RabbitMQ, for instance. I'll learn it on my own. And finally, they have fun. So this is the quadrant where the craftspeople are going to be, and where we should all kind of strive to be. And so this is my own personal take on over 30 years of in the industry of being a programmer on where people typically fall. Okay, the best books to read now, in my opinion. Clean Architecture. And hey, look at that subtitle, A Craftsman Guide to Software Structure and Design. I consider this one of the best foundational books for building software that anyone could read. So yeah, it would be a foundation thing. Add it to your list and try to get it near the top. Number 2, Drift into Failure. This is an awesome book about the complexity of systems and how they drift over time to certain numbers of components, that interoperability is difficult to manage, the number of people that have worked on this thing over the years, and how any system over time will drift into a state of failure. Things that you can do to recognize it, things that you can do to avoid it. So one of my favorite books of all time. The DevOps Handbook, How to Create World-Class Agility, Reliability, and Security in High-Tech Organizations. This, to me, should be required reading for anyone joining GAP, in my opinion. I mean, this is just a game changer for anyone that wants to remain current in the current goings of cloud and DevOps and always-on type services. The Phoenix Project. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and this is both entertaining and very informative at the same time. One of the best books, if not the best book on IT projects ever written. You'll notice probably a lot of similarities between the project you're on now and things that went on in the Phoenix Project. Very worthwhile read and should be on your list. And then Scalability Rules. So Principles for Scaling Websites, 2nd edition. Even though this says websites, I would just say it would be, I would leave it at Principles for Scaling, in my opinion. I can tell you that as someone that was on a team that developed systems to support multi-millions of concurrent users in gaming, the strategies and the approaches that we used, all but 1 or 2 of them were in this book. And so there's some really secret sauce stuff in here that is worth reading, especially if you're on a project where you're building something that is, publicly facing and needs to be highly scalable. Then put it at the top of the list, because you're going to see some techniques in there. You're going to read about techniques in there that you can't wait to try out, because they are very effective and battle tested. And the last one is Building Event-Driven Microservices. If you haven't been in tune with the recent movement of microservices, it's here and it's here to stay. And so this is a really good, I think it's the best book on how to build event-driven microservices that you can use. So it doesn't matter if you're talking serverless stuff, which I'm a fan of, or Kubernetes and containers. Microservices exist in either one of those or even outside of those. But it is I consider it the Bible, and that will help you on your project, as you might be on a project where they're going from a monolithic application to microservices, or you're starting with a blank sheet of paper and they want to build an app that microservices out of the gate. So those would be my 6 books that I would recommend to add to your library, and then you'd be very glad that you did so. My go forward challenge to everybody here. Number 1, document an honest assessment of strengths and weaknesses, technical and behavioral. Being honest with yourself is the only way to grow. So you might say, I need to get better at databases. I'm a Java guy, and I'm using this object relational stuff that's insulating me from these details. That's fine, but I might want to know more about databases, or I might want to know more about networking, or maybe you want to know something more about non-technical. Maybe it's like, Agile Scrum or something else, or how to lead effective meetings, things like that. Document what you think you need to improve on, and be honest with yourself. Next, specify 2 people you think you could learn from, especially in those areas that you've just outlined, and let them know that you're interested. Not only will they be flattered that you even asked them, they'll probably be honored and do whatever you ask them to do, as far as time commitment or ways that you think that you can learn from them, and let them figure out what would be the best way that they could share information to you. And then 3, specify 2 people you think could learn from you, and ask them if they're interested. And I bet they will be. And it might be, you got to do this. It's not like, hey, Jason, let me show you something about Python, bro. No, not like that. It's just like, hey, I noticed that you've been doing a lot of database stuff on the check-ins, and I got a pretty long history in this. I'd be glad to show you some things if you're interested. Very non-threatening, very respectful, and let them decide. But being able to share with people, that's going to give you the greatest satisfaction and elevate your own game. And then see how it goes, and repeat it every 12 months. You're going to have different things you got to work on a year from now, or you should, because you already fixed those others, or made big improvements in the ones that you worked on last year. And to go through this again, do it every 12 months. That's my go forward challenge to everybody here. Okay. My second to the last slide says, it's not a journey. I'm sorry, it is a journey, not a destination. This is a lifetime of learning. Lighten up and enjoy the ride. This is an amazing time to be a programmer in this world. And so not only do we get compensation to help feed our families and support our families, but it's pretty intellectually stimulating. And it's sometimes the applications that we work on are game-changing applications in the world. It might be something in healthcare. It might be something in fintech. It might be something in entertainment. It could be anything that you look back and you say, I had a part of that. So lighten up. Don't be too hard on yourself. Enjoy the ride, and just focus on improving on the things little by little. All right, congratulations. You're now on your way to becoming a craftsperson. But before we get to Q&A, I want everyone to know I'm here to help. So like I said, I'm on Team Gap. I'm here to help you with maybe some technical problems that you need some assistance with. Maybe you're deciding on certain technologies, or you're working on a project where you're like, I could use some input on this, or just a second set of eyeballs. Or maybe you, as a developer, want some career advice for someone that's been doing it for 32 years on some big decisions that you have in your life and your career. So I wanted to extend my hand to everyone here and just say, I'm here to help anyone on the GAP team. So please don't be strangers, and reach out if you need any help. And that's it. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to take them.
We have question here in the chat, so I'm going to read it. Daniel says, what's the thing you did as a programmer that you are most proud of in your professional career?
I wish you could see the wall here, but I would say at EA, I worked on many video games, but the one that I'm most proud of is Star Wars: The Old Republic, which is a MMO that had 5 million concurrent users at one time. And I had to build a team and the architecture, starting with a blank sheet of paper, to support that. And the fact that that game is still going on strong now, and then people will find out that I had something to do with that because my name's still in the credits. I still get called out and like, man, this is an awesome thing. So I did something that made millions of people happy, which how many people can say that, right? So that's the thing that I'm most proud of.
Pretty good game, I would say so.
Awesome. A million
I
and
have
one.
played it myself.
That's great.